All right, Coach Montag. He is the defense coordinator, linebackers coach at Morehead State University. Coach, thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate having me on.
I was nervous when I said your name there. I was like, oh, I screwed it up. I knew I was going to do it. Well, Coach, thanks for being here. We were just talking about recruiting. You are on the road recruiting, so I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. Let's talk about you for a second. How'd you end up Morehead State? What's the different destination spots you've taken? Did you always know you wanted to be a coach, or was it just something that just kind of happened?
Yeah, so I mean, going all the way back, I've always wanted to coach. Even when I was in high school, I was coaching little league. I would practice and I would go and help out my little brother's teams. When I was in little league, even before that, my dad was one of the little league coaches for my brothers, but he wasn't really a coach. He was just kind of the guy that had the keg of beer and let everybody come over to the house. So
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. So I mean, he didn't know what was going on, but he had everybody at the house. And then like I would come down. I wanted to sit there and listen to it. I wanted to talk ball. I wanted to learn, and I really kind of fell in love with that from there. I mean, as a kid, me and my best friend would draw plays and do stuff in notebooks. Like that was just always kind of where I've been. Went to Bridgewater College in Virginia. The head coach there, Mike Clark, told me in a football class, he said, if you wanted to get into coaching, go do it at the highest level. He's like, do it while you're young, do it when you don't have anything holding you back. He goes, go see it at the highest level and see what it's about. Cause it's like nothing you ever think, like it's like nothing else.
Right.
So took his advice, got into grad school at the University of Miami and used the sports administration grad programs connections to get in touch with the DFO and assistant DFO at the University of Miami. Lucky enough, I was able to get in. I kind of hit it at the right time. I showed up during camp, and a volunteer had quit, so I kind of got pulled in quickly. I spent a day with the ops guys doing like looking up every high school coach in the state of Georgia before everybody's paying for all these services now because you get it all easy, right? But like
Right.
pulling up every single high school coach and typing in an Excel file, and I did that for like a day or two, and then one of the QCs came in and asked if I wanted to actually do football, and I was like, absolutely, and
Mm-hmm.
got a chance to work with the linebackers. Coach Mark D'Onofrio was the DC, Al Golden was the head coach. So I really got to start there. They gave me a little bit of money to stick around my second year. Got my degree, and that was 14, 15. So we got let go. We got let go after the Clemson game when I was there. Obviously the head coach did. The staff got to stick around.
Right.
After the season, Randy Melvin, who's the D-line coach, got the D-line job at Purdue, called me and offered me the GA job with him. So I went up there with him, got to spend a year doing that. That was Daryl Hazel's last year there. Was a part of that fired staff. Marcus Freeman was the co-DC, Ross Ells, Taver Johnson, some of those guys. So we get let go. Fortunately enough, I was able to stick around when Jeff Brom came. So I worked for Jeff Brom that second year when Nick Holt was the DC, helping the D line with Reggie Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a year. My GA time was up at Purdue. Then Mark D'Onofrio, who I worked for at Miami, was now the DC at Houston. So he gave me a call to come down there and help out. Got a chance to go down there and help out the D line there, working with like Ed Oliver, Peyton Turner, Logan Hall. I mean, some guys first round picks.
Right.
I've been blessed to be around some really good players.
Right.
We win 8 games. Wasn't enough. We get let go at Houston. I go to the University of New Mexico. The outside linebacker coach Dan Carroll became the linebacker coach of New Mexico, so he brought me out there. That was Bob Davies last year. We get let go there as well.
There's a theme here for a second.
Yeah. I've had quite the run. So I'm out of job. I'm trying to find something. I get a call. Travis Everhart was the head coach at Alderson Broaddus, D2 school in West Virginia. Called me. We talked. He offers me the DC job basically as the world shuts down. So that was during COVID. So that was So I get my first opportunity to recruit and coach, and it's during COVID. So
What a time.
yeah,
What a
so I'm
time.
I'm actually I'm staying with my my girlfriend up in Chicago. She was at Northwestern at the time,
Yep.
coaching. So she coaches women's lacrosse. So we're both crazy.
The coach of
So
life.
yeah, so I'm up with her at Evanston. I get the job in West Virginia. Can't move there. Can't do anything. So everything's like recruiting online. Um, finding guys, trying to build the roster, trying to get it going. Move out there in August. I'm there. Was there the whole. I was up in Evanston working for them in the spring. Get there in August. We do that COVID fall where nobody
Mhm.
plays. We do the spring season, and then we play the following fall was like our first real year.
Right.
Uh, was lucky. I mean, we were young. It's a place that had a lot of issues in a lot of different ways. Obviously, the school was closed since they shut down last August.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so um, had a big issue retention wise. So I mean, we played a ton of freshmen. We had a lot of young guys on the field. I had um, the spring COVID year, and then the fall. Each year I had a different freshman linebacker make all conference. You know, we've improved a lot of stats, but it wasn't enough to be any good still. Um, so after that season in January, I get a call. A good friend of mine, Lamar Morgan, got the DC job at Louisiana Lafayette,
Hmm.
University of Louisiana. We had worked together. He was the safeties coach at Houston when I was at Houston. So he offered me a job down there to come down and be a QC and kind of help him. It was his first DC job, and you know, asked if I would come down and help him out and kind of get things rolling. And so I jumped at the opportunity. Um, Went down there, was there the last 2 years, and then Coach Woodman called me kind of out the blue to come to Morehead. He was at Fairmont, so
Hmm.
we actually played against him when I was at Alderson Broadus. Um, and he called me, and we talked ball for a little while, and offered me the job. So I jumped at it. It was an opportunity to get back. A little closer to home. Have a chance to recruit the Maryland D.C. area, Northern Virginia, and then chance to be a coordinator again. So jumped
Right.
at it and excited to be here. It's been a blast so far. We just finished up spring ball, getting on the road recruiting. Look for some guys to make sure we're ready to go this fall.
Yeah, that's a lot of stops, but that's a lot of experiences that you could take with you. Like you hit the nail on the head. One of my coaching buddies, he was like, "Steve, would you ever go to college and coach?" I was like, "I don't think I can now. I'm 33. I don't think I can, like you said, if you're going to do it, do when you're young and not be tied down." Uh, but I also talked to other coaches. Sometimes they have a hard time finding GAs now because once they get told what everything's included, they're like, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." Now, some do, some don't. But like when you hear that, some people are like, "Man, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to
Yeah,
move around and be let go and,
yeah,
not know where I'm going." And um, that could be the times, like the times have changed where it's instant
mhm,
gratification type of thing. I don't know if you're
right.
seeing that. Like people just necessarily don't want a GA to
Yeah,
do that.
I think people don't realize what all is involved, and guys get out of it quick. It's a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years that have been in support roles, the GAQC stuff. Like you don't make it. It's hard and it's brutal, and it doesn't necessarily happen like how you think it should or in your time. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not. You don't have any control, and it's not necessarily how good you are. Is when the opportunities come. It's right time, knowing the right guy at the right time in the right situation, and it is brutal, and it's not it's not easy, but
Right.
it can be very rewarding. But you know, I would say like my path has been hectic. There's a lot of guys that'll go one place and kind of stay there for a long time and
Right.
have an opportunity to be around the same guys the whole time. I've been blessed to have an opportunity to learn from so many different coaches so early in my career, and the moves and getting to be all over the country and get a chance to you know really experience a bunch of different head coaches, a bunch of different coordinators, a bunch of different position coaches, and really you know take pieces from each and every guy that I've had an opportunity to see and work with, and really kind of help mold who I am. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, everybody, I did the same thing. Like I was telling somebody, I've coached at 6 different high schools for football,
Mm.
and this is probably my second longest one. I've been here. Just like you, I got hired in the summer of 2020, thinking COVID wouldn't last that long.
Mhm.
The head coach got hired in January, and then COVID hit, so he was a head coach during COVID. And I'm
Nice.
like, I'll take this. I'll take this offensive line spot. Then we don't play till the spring. Then we play again in the fall, and so I guess you could say 4 years now. Um, but you take something from each school and each coach, whether it's good or bad. I've been around a bad staff and I learned how this is not the right way to do it. I've been around phenomenal staffs and go, well, I'm going to mimic them and do what that type of thing is. And then you kind of mold it into yourself and what you do. So um, even though you moved around a lot and did that, you've probably learned a ton and able to mold it to what you want. So now that you're a DC again, you could say, okay, I've taken these pieces, but this is also my identity. This is what I do. Um,
Right.
and that's
For
okay
sure.
for people to move around and do that high school or college. Like it's okay to not be at one spot for 30 years. It's cool, but you don't have to.
Right.
Um, so when you go to all these different spots and you get your own like room and especially now that you're a DC again, what's kind of like the first thing we go to that meeting room? I don't like to use the word culture. I like the word standard better. Like, how do you get new players to buy into what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, standard is usually that's a big word I use as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's our standards and making sure we're meeting our standards. That there's not rules. We're not breaking rules. We're reaching and making sure that we're meeting our standards.
Right.
You know, kind of interesting, like walking in at Morehead, that I don't feel that it's really deserved, but like the places I've been kind of really like garner its own respect almost. Like
Mhm.
when I walk in, like it's and I do think we have a special group of guys. I think the guys at Morehead are really great people, and there's really been like very limited, if any, like pushback. Everything's been very much like they're excited to see what we're asking them to do, and
Right.
you know the they've met everything we've asked them to do. It's been
Uh,
more so making sure that we're crystal clear with what the expectations are.
right.
I think there was some things, me and Coach Woodman have talked like coming in, there were some things that you almost expected they already kind of knew or like kind of we took for granted thinking that they like understood that like we had to then circle back like, okay, well, we screwed that up. Like, let's make sure that, there
Right.
is no we're not leaving anything open to interpretation.
Right.
And but the guys have been awesome. I mean, there hasn't really been any issues as far as that. Like everything that we've came in and set and we held them accountable and they want to be held accountable and they've been awesome. I mean, there's really been no issues there at all. But I mean, I think that's for me has been kind of the easy piece.
Right.
And then I think regardless of where you are, even with some of the guys that have been around that have been big time draft picks and highly recruited guys, like at the end of the day, if you hold the players accountable and you're able to give them information that helps them, the respect comes.
Right.
I'm not the guy that's going to come in and pound my chest and tell you that you need to listen to me, but I'm going to help you as much as I can, and that usually then encourages it and kind of takes care of itself.
Right. One thing I learned is you can't have like a 15-page PowerPoint anymore, when you walk in like, oh, here's this, because you'll lose them after that first pre
For
part.
sure.
Like, you know, I'm starting meetings with our kids and I don't even use PowerPoint. I have like a document and it's separated. It's like today we're gonna talk about inside zone. Today we're talking about this. And it's literally maybe 6 bullet points. And then I get right to
Mhm.
film so I don't lose them. And then I start
Yeah,
quizzing them because they're not going to pay attention. Like maybe we all
correct.
would have, maybe, but
Yeah.
they don't do that anymore. And then I find myself over the years, I'm going into year 15 in the fall. I have to tell them why, because I
Mhm.
remember when we all grew up playing, I don't think we really questioned why. We just did it. And then I want to say when I was like 24, I realized kids were like, why? Why are we doing this? Why? And I'm like, what do you mean, why? Because I said so, that type of thing.
Yeah,
And
them fun.
yeah, well, now it's just subconscious. I get ahead of it now. So, like, when I
Yeah,
say
for
it,
sure.
I immediately give them a definition. I don't even realize it. So
Yep.
that way you don't get the, Well, this is an example today. I'm talking about inside zone to running backs. It's like you got three options. You bang it in, you bounce it, or you bend it, or you bounce it. That's your only option. And they go, why is it called that? And I was like, it's the three B's. I'm an idiot, and it's the easiest way to remember it. And they're like, why don't you say, like, run it up the middle, cut here, cut here? And I'm like, because you will forget it.
Yeah.
And, like, they're asking why. If I was in high school or college, I would have been like, okay, that's what you want to call it.
Right.
But I find that more and more now is like, you have to tell them why. Like,
For sure.
like when we played, the head coach could be like, hey, go hit him with your head down. You'd be like, okay, not asking why. Or
Right.
why are we not passing the ball? Why are we running the triple option? Because this is 2005. And you're like, well, you're not asking. You're just like, okay, I don't know what the option means. And it's just what it is. That's one thing I've learned when you come into a room. And another thing is, I can't be, like you said, I can't pound my chest and be serious the entire time. You have to like joke and adapt, figure out what kid you can chew, what kid you can't.
For
And
sure.
that's more mental strain on us. Like we've become free therapists at times. Like I
Without a
joked,
doubt.
I joked with our AD the other day. I was like, "Do I get paid extra for being a therapist?" And he goes, "Well, you don't have your degree in therapy, so I don't think so." And I was like, "Well, these kids come to us for everything."
Yeah, they do. That was the other thing too. Like when I first got there, was I tried to make sure, I took time to get with each of the guys that are going to be in the room, and then so like coaching the linebackers, getting all of the linebackers and have one-on-one meetings and get to know them and kind of like figure out who they were, where they're coming from. Because like you can look at their profile on the roster and say, that, okay,
Yeah,
he went to this high school, he transferred from here. But like giving the kid a voice and letting him feel like he's important, he's got like he can tell you who he is.
right.
Um, and then from there, so like, they know they I was coming in my first week, they know Morehead better than I did.
Hmm.
They knew the issues on the team. They knew where we were. They knew, kind of where things were. They might not know, my vision or our vision and what we're trying to do, but they had a better clue of where we were.
Right, right,
And then would ask them kind of what they saw the issues were. Why were things the way they were? What's the biggest things that need to get fixed and kind of get a grasp of where they are. And then, being the DC, I tried to handpick from my conversations with the linebackers, which guys in other positions were the guys seen as leaders and which guys were the ones that kind of, you know, had played and did some things and that people respected, and then kind of get the same from those guys too. You know what I mean? So like just
right,
touching those guys in every, you know, trying to get a feel for the team
right,
basically. And
right.
then, I'm big on, I know it's cliche and everybody says it, like nobody cares what you know until they know you care. So,
Yeah.
you sit down and have these meetings and it was, I really didn't try to like schedule times because you never know. Some kid comes in, it's 5-10 minutes. That's all. Like he don't really want to talk. He's not going to open up.
Hmm.
So other kids sit down, and all of a sudden it's like been an hour and a half, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, like
Yeah.
they're telling you about stuff in their life that you're like, I can't imagine going through. So
Yeah. And they can sniff out if you're being fake too. Like they quickly can
absolutely,
figure that out. Super like
absolutely,
they're not dumb. Like they'll figure it out, especially with college coaches. You have more walks of life than we do at high school. So for you guys
mhm,
coming from all walks of life, they'll sniff it out real quick. And then
yeah,
it kind of goes hand in hand, like we were talking earlier, like the transfer portal. You're new, you come in, you're talking to these guys. If they don't like you and all this stuff, they could jump and leave,
oh
right?
yeah, without a doubt,
And so now while you're talking to them, it's kind of seeing how you feel about them, but then like, can we get them to stay too? Like
mhm,
an extra pressure you don't need.
yeah,
Like I hate to repeat it because we said it earlier, but like, man, that part has to be hard. And then you cannot hold a grudge against them either if they leave, right? Like it's kind of like because some kids use it the right way, like, okay, they're homesick, they got family issues, they need to get somewhere.
mm-hmm.
Maybe truly for 3 years they never played and they're gonna go to a smaller school, whatever. But like like since you started and the recruiting now in that aspect, how have you adapted all the new world of like dealing with social media, dealing with them staying, and then now dealing with when they do leave, what's the steps, always constantly recruiting, constantly on your phone, probably. Like, how is that
Yeah.
like changed and adapted?
So it really, to be honest, I think the guys were excited with the way spring went. So we really had minimal guys leave.
Okay.
Um, there was some movement that was, for the betterment of the program.
Hmm.
Maybe didn't see eye to eye or some things like that. But we really didn't there we were lucky in that I think the guys that were expecting a lot from were really excited about where things stood.
Right.
So the new and where things were, I think really helped. So that was big. At Lafayette or Louisiana, we had a lot more issues with that where it was like, you were constantly trying to keep players and it was like, okay, these guys just hit the portal. Like, and you don't, at the end of the day, it's a business for everybody. So, you really don't want to lose guys. You don't want them to leave. But like you said, you can't hold a grudge. You know what I mean? Like if they
Right.
feel that's what's best for them, that's they got to make the decision that's for them. You might not agree. You know, you might wish that they handled it a little differently at times. But sometimes they're young and they don't have the life experience and they don't really understand how to handle that because it is a tough conversation. Even
Right.
as a coach, right? When you go in there to tell the guy you work for that you got an opportunity elsewhere and you're going to leave, like
Hmm.
that's not a comfortable conversation, but that's something that as a coach you do regularly because it's how you have to operate, right? So you get it and you understand it, but like these guys, they're young and they've
Yeah.
never done that before. They don't understand what that's like. Like they don't realize that you can burn bridges doing that. So I don't take it personal. I will say the guys that did it here at Morehead this year, came in and they sat down and had real conversations and I felt really good. Like we had really good conversations and left at a really good place with the guys that decided it was best for them. Um, like I said, no ill will. I mean, it was a good decision for them.
Right.
We do have a ton of open spots just on where the roster is on defense. We were very light this spring, so I mean there is a lot of openings. So even without us losing a bunch of guys to the portal right now, it's still. I mean, we're in the portal, we're in JUCO, we're looking everywhere, and you hate to say it, but you feel like you know we're behind as far as like the 25 class and getting out and
Hmm.
getting to know the coaches in the area, getting them to the high schools and spending the time. Like, that's really been probably the biggest negative to the portal. Like the two biggest negatives in my mind to the portal and the way things have went is one, the development piece and the real relationships you got to spend with the guy where you know he comes in not ready and you tear him up for 2 years and you build him up and he becomes a really
Right.
good player and now you get to see the fruits of your labor and everybody kind of gets to build together and the bonds you build when you're together for 4 or 5 years, right?
Right.
You lose that, but the other piece is like it hurts the high school relationships and high school recruiting because right now, I mean, whether you lost guys to the portal or whatever, like you're building your roster right now, and you're not
Hmm.
worried about you know bringing in freshmen that you're going to groom and build and grow into good players because who knows if they'll ever play for you. They
Right.
come in and they redshirt because not ready the first year. Well, now they're mad they redshirt, so now they're leaving. Or they come in, they play as a freshman. Well, I played as a freshman. I'm better than yours, so they get in the portal and leave, right? Or
Yeah.
they come for a year or two and they develop into a good player, but then they leave because they're a good player. Like it's hard to recruit young guys in today's day and age.
I was getting ready to ask that about how high school recruits get affected because a coach told me that the high school kids are still getting recruited, but they're getting recruited differently. And I said, well, what do you mean they're getting recruited differently? And he said, this was a Power Five guy. So he's like, well, this kid maybe 8 years ago would have gone Power Five. But now with
Mhm.
the portal, maybe he's going group of five, maybe he's going FCS, maybe he's going Division II out of high school. Then he
Mhm.
goes to the Power Five. And he goes, to him, that's how it's kind of changed. But I still know plenty of coaches, they still attack the high school. But like you said, maybe it's not as much as attacking the high school anymore. And I guess it depends on the timing. Like, let's say right after we get off of here, somebody leaves. Well, you can't get them in the high school. Like, it's really difficult. You have to get it now. And
Sure.
that part does stink for you guys because now you're going to find a junior. You really have to find out his baggage. Why did he leave? Call the coaches. Then you go back all the way to high school, watch all this film and all this stuff. And then on top of it, you still have to recruit the high school because you need that relationship because they get a stud and you can get them. Like it's just a lot of work and communication pieces. I don't think people that watch ESPN and Fox Sports know that you guys do that for college. Like they don't realize, I don't think they realize like, well, why are they working from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.? Well, it's not football the whole time. Like it's going to be constantly doing that type of stuff now.
Right.
And then worried about kids like, well, I'm not coming there because I want money. Well, cool. I want money too, but you have to work
Yeah.
for it, like I want all the money. And I don't think people realize that because ESPN calls it the Wild West, which it is, but I don't think they realize exactly what goes on. Right.
Yeah.
Like you said,
You lost the downtimes, right? You lost the you know, December after that early signing period. Well, now it's portal window.
yeah,
So Christmas time is not downtime, see your family, bowl games. Like it's portal.
yeah,
It's making sure that, you're not losing guys in the portal, making sure you're keeping your players, but it's also making sure that the guys you lost that you're getting guys, like you said, you lose a starter. You can't replace a starter with a high school freshman.
no, no,
Like that doesn't work like that. Now you do need to make sure that you recruit, even at Morehead, the guys, the roster is built of so many JUCO guys right now. As a new staff, we just got here, so we're kind of figuring out what our niche is and how to, how do we get the best roster we can. And so much of the roster right now is JUCO, but the guys that are best players still on the roster coming out of spring are guys that were high school guys.
yeah,
That it's the guys that came and developed. It's the guys that that's you still gotta be able to bring the high school guys in. You still gotta find the best guys you can and bring them in. I think even at the higher levels, it's really turned more. Before, if you lost a high school kid late, it was okay. You had other high school guys you were recruiting. I think it's kind of gotten to the point now where it's like you figure out, all right, here's the high school guys we're good with taking, and you have that short list. You know what I mean? Through the summer, you kind of whittle it down. You figure it out throughout the fall, and then it gets to the late fall, early winter period. It's like, all right, here's the guys we feel comfortable signing. And then it's like, if you lose guys off of that, well, you're not going back and trying to find high school kids to replace it. You're like, okay, cool. That's an open spot. And now it's a portal guy, or that's, you know what I mean? You replace those guys you lose there with some older guys. So I think that's what hurts is the high school kids is that, there's not as many teams that are looking to pick up a high school kid late because you don't have the time to build a relationship and you don't know if he's built the right way. And, you don't have the 6 months to learn about the guy, make sure that you feel great about the whole situation and circumstance,
right.
Where with the portal guys, it's a little bit easier to get quick, fast information. The decisions happen fast. And it's like, well, he's at least been in a college program. He gets how this works. He's been developed. Should be able to help us right now.
Right. Something else that was crazy. I was at U of I's practice a couple weeks ago, and they had a bus there that pulled up. It's called the Rising Stars, where kids get recruited. It's like a program. They go up to Coach Bart Miller, the line coach. I was talking to him, and they come up to him. They're handing him business cards, and they're talking to him. And they walk away, and I looked at him, and I said, "Are you shitting me? There's business cards?" And he looks at me, takes a deep sigh, and he goes, "Yep." And he goes, "Now you know what I do with half of them?" And puts them in his pocket. He's like, I said, "Is this really how recruiting works now? Like business cards?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "This is the new deal right here." And I said, "What happened to the talking to the coach in person and calling?" And so he goes, "Nope, nope." He goes, he's like, "I'm okay with texting. I'm okay with DMs. That's all good because it turns into a phone call. It turns into visits." But he's like, "I get these business cards and some of these kids have quote unquote agents and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Is this really happening?" And he goes, "Yep." So I said, "I don't have Division I kids, but do they need business cards?" He goes, "Oh, please no." He goes, "Don't do that to these other college coaches." He's like, "No, don't do that to them."
Right.
Have you ever seen that? Business cards?
I have not. I've seen that when they mail the flyer, a flash drive with all their information, everything on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Most schools now have each kid almost has his own recruiting profile within a website or something. That's all.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen the business cards. That's
Hey, I told our head coach about that, and he was like, "I don't think I knew what a business card was in high school." I was like, "I didn't either.
No doubt.
I wouldn't know how to make that. I don't even make the highlight film for the kids." I'm like, "You make it." I'm not doing it.
Right.
Like the technology, I know how to do it, but I'm like, nah, the technology piece, you guys figure it out. But then these kids have like a 5 minute highlight film and they'll give it because I run our social media and I'm like, guys, I want to help you get recruited. So make the highlight film, give it to me. I can put it on Twitter.
Mhm.
And one kid gave me like a 6 minute one. I said, no, 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 no. You got to trim this down a little bit.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? I was like, these guys only want to see like a minute and a half to 2 minutes tops. Well,
Right.
how can I get 11 games into that? And I was like, that's your problem. I said, just pick a play
That's
for each
well,
game.
half the time they have no idea what a highlight is, anyways. Like they watch like DBs let up a catch and then it's a tackle. It's like
Yeah.
glad you made the tackle, but like you just got beat, bro. Like
Oh yeah. Or like, a running back or like a lineman's blocking, but it's like, oh, but you blocked the wrong guy, dude. Like or you're
yeah,
going the wrong way, man.
right.
And
Like love the, like the hip toss, right? Like
yeah,
he's like you're like on the backside, you just like hip toss the guy and throw him down. Like, well, not really a great block. Like it's not really like a technique. Like you're just kind of being a brick.
or uh, or like the gang tackle, which I know you guys love to see, but they're like, look at this tackle. I'm like, well, the three guys had him first. You jumped on top of the pile, like that.
Yeah, correct.
It's
Correct.
cool you got there, but like, don't say your tackle or don't add that to your tackle stat there, buddy.
Right.
Uh, or I told the kids to do this. I said, okay, we played 11 games this year, split in half. Like, okay, here's my first half of the season, make that 2 minutes, then make a second half for 2 minutes, and I'll share them out separately. But again, they're like, well, how can I find all the plays? Pick 5 games to not pick from, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. And they're like, well, these college coaches want to see all this. I was like, no, they don't. They don't have time.
Yeah, for sure.
They have zero time for that nonsense.
Yeah, and then get like your best plays early. You know, like put the stuff that you need seen early. So many guys have these 6 minute tapes, and it's like the first 4 minutes are like useless, and then like all of a
Mhm.
sudden, like if you sit there and you keep watching, it's like okay, well now there's some decent plays. Like now you see the guy move in space. Like
Yeah.
now how many times it's like the guy doesn't even move, or like they circle it after the play. Like you caught a pick and then you get circled, and it's like okay, cool. Like I didn't see you move at all. I didn't see any athleticism. Now I just see the ball hit you in the face and you caught it. Like
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like so, yeah, they really
Or I
they
tell
make play tapes for their friends, not for getting recruited.
or I told them it doesn't necessarily have to be a block or something. Like, are you playing good coverage? Did you do this? Like, they want to see that. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily always the tackle or the touchdown. It's always make that up and they go, well, how do I know what that is? Can you help me? I'm like, no, watch the film and figure it out your damn self. Like, you've watched film with us all year. You could figure it out. You
right,
know, the unsung heroes are the guys doing their job over that. Like, it's
right,
cool. It's cool. Put it on Twitter. You could take that clip, put it on your Twitter. Boom. There you go. But what you want me to send out is that. And then another thing they don't get is, well, I want to go play college football and do this schools. And I'm like, well, what's your GPA? And they'll tell me the GPA. And they're like, well, I didn't know I had to have a GPA to get into these schools. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
that's the next part they don't get told.
yep,
And no offense to counselors, but sometimes football coaches need to be counselors because they don't get told. They're like, wait, I have to have a 3.2 GPA to get into the school? Yeah, buddy, you do.
right,
But but the coach is talking to me. I'm like, yeah. And then once he finds out your GPA, there's going to be a
yeah, it's over.
conversation.
Yep,
Or the best one is, do you play other sports? And if you don't, that college coach is going to question it. They're going to be like, hey, hold on a second. Because we have
right,
kids wanting to play one sport or specialize. And I'm like, no, buddy, you need to do multiple sports.
right,
Um, and they're quickly learning. Well, what do they ask you guys when they talk to you? And I say, okay, they'll ask us about your character. They're going to ask us about, do you show up to things on time, your grades? Then they worry about, because by the time you guys talk to us, you already know the football side. Like, you've already seen it.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so, and then I tell them, like, okay, so when I host a speed workout at 6 a.m. and you don't show up for a week, guess what I'm going to tell that college coach? Yeah, I was hosting this stuff and he's not showing up.
Right,
Stop talking to us. Like we have a kid getting recruited, he wants to play college football. Super nice kid. He just has nobody pushing him. If he's in the right environment to be pushed, he'll do well. But like there's times like you don't know where he is at certain times. And we're like, we have to tell these guys that. And they're like, well, you can't just lie. I'm like, I'm not lying to a college coach.
yeah. That's like they don't realize that's your reputation and your ability to help players down the road. Like there's coaches like that I have good relationships with that will call and it's their word is as good as gold. They tell me a
Yeah.
kid's good for me, like and you know they believe in him. The kid will show up and he'll bust his ass, and then like I'm all in. Like
Yeah.
because when they tell you it's the truth.
Yeah.
And if there's a coach that sells you a bill of goods and the kid shows up and he's like nothing or he doesn't tell you, you ask, like it's one thing if you don't ask, right? If you don't ask the question, but if you ask the question, you get lied to.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, okay, you show up and the kid's nothing like what you expected or what you were told.
Right.
Now
Right.
you have a hard time going back to school. And if you go back, you're like, hey man, like so and so is doing this, that, and the third. Well, if they're like, I can't believe it, I'm gonna call him and put my foot up his ass. Like that's one thing, right? But like when it's like, yeah, he did the same thing here. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
like, okay, so that was allowed here, and you blatantly lied to me to get him recruited. Well, now there's no trust. Now
Oh
I
yeah.
can't trust you. Now there's it like you're not going back into that school. You're just not going to go recruit those kids at all. So now the whole school loses
Right.
opportunities.
And then when I was talking to Coach Miller at Illinois, I said, this might be a little off the wall with people, but I want trust with coaches. For example, let's say you were recruiting a kid on a team. Oh, I remember Coach Steve on his podcast. He coached at Addison Trail. They played this school. Let me ask him what he thought about that kid. Like,
For sure.
even though it's not my kid, they could call me and I could be like, I could be like one of two things. Oh yeah, he killed us. He did exactly everything you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll call me. I'll be like, that kid. Like, are you sure? Like, watch our film, and and you might be like, oh, wait a minute. Like now you
Yep.
still might recruit him, but at least you're getting an extra.
Correct. That's always the big thing. That's been if you especially if you've been in an area for a little while and you got good connections, like the guys in the area know and they know which kids because they all talk, right? All the high school coaches like know each other, whether they like each other or not, they talk.
Right.
And you'll know which kids are a pain. You know which kids are the great kids that show up to everything. Like the whole area knows.
Oh yeah. Because I had a coach from Army. He came on here, and it was so funny. As soon as he hopped on the Zoom, I hit record. He goes, "Steve, I just want you to know I can't root for you your Week 9 game." And I was like caught off guard. I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're playing down or south, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I recruited 2 kids there, so I'm not rooting for you." He goes, "Now, what do you think about this other kid they have?" Like while we're on here, and I'm like, I caught off guard. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's really tall and good." And he goes, "Okay, that's what I thought." And like, what does he do? And so like right then and there, and that was my first exposure of like telling
Mm-hmm.
him about another kid.
Yep.
Um, or this year, we made the playoffs. We made the second round. There's a kid on the other team that I know is getting recruited by like Miami of Ohio and stuff. He's a defensive end, and I'm not saying he's not good, but like he didn't do what I thought he was going to do against us. I was able to
Mm-hmm.
block him one on one. Inside zone, our quarterback was able to get around him. Like he wasn't staying as disciplined as he should have. And I remember telling like another college coach, like, "Are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
are you sure?" And they told me, well, his frame and everything else, we can make it work. And they're thinking
Mm-hmm.
from the mindset of like he's a freshman, we can mold this type of thing.
Yeah. Right.
But I was honest with them. I was like, hey, he's good, but like against us, who was not as good as them, this is what we did. So these are partly maybe his weaknesses that you need to know about.
Right.
And so that trust factor of, okay, even though we're not recruiting Steve's kid, if I know he's coached against this kid for 2 years or whatever it is, maybe I can ask him the real. And
Mm-hmm. For sure.
um and some people might be like, why are you helping out another kid? And I'm like, look, I'm not gonna sit there and ruin a kid's life if I can tell a college coach like, yeah, he's actually what you think he is, or
Right.
help out a
Right.
college coach and say, maybe you need to look more deeper into this kid because I've heard that he is a pain to this coach and everything else.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
put our egos aside. And because I have plenty of high school coaches up here that I do not like for sure, but like I wouldn't hold it against the kid. They don't
Yeah.
know.
For sure.
They don't know.
Correct. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? Like it's not your word isn't going to get the kid recruited. You're just a second opinion, right?
Yeah.
You're a guy in the area that has knowledge. It's the same way when we go into schools, right? Like even these JUCOs, like I'm sitting there at practice, like I'm asking the trainers, I'm asking the equipment managers, like who's
Yeah.
around, like tell me about the kid, like
Yeah.
because and half the time you catch them off guard and they have no idea, but like they'll either give you the real
Yeah.
or you'll catch them off guard and they'll backtrack and you'll be able to tell something's off, right?
Right.
You'll get some kind of what's the same thing like when you're talking to other schools coaches, right? Like they're not there every day with the guy. They don't see the kid every day. They don't have the personal relationship, but like they still know if something's off, or they still
Yeah.
know if that kid was the real deal. Like, there was that was, I got, it was not my area, but I was up in the northern Ohio area, or no, northern Kentucky area, like almost Cincinnati.
Hmm. Yep.
And those coaches there were awesome. It was my first time being up there and getting a chance to meet those guys. But the coaches there were awesome, and so many of them knew about each other's guys. They were, you knew which guys had respect in the league and in the district and in those counties, because they all talked about the same guys, and they, you knew which kids were the tough SOBs, and
Yep.
you know the coaches had a lot of respect for certain guys, and it makes it easy. You go in, every coach is going to love his guys, right? And you got coaches that are going to sell the crap out of their guys, whether they're very good or not. Like, they're going to bring in the old 5'8" kid that has no business playing Division III football, and
Oh yeah.
and they're going to sell the crap out of him. And they love the kid because he's a great kid and everything else. But you go to other schools and they talk about, man, that kid is different. Like, he plays quarterback for them. He's not a quarterback the next level, man. He is tough. He is
Yeah.
competitive. He's fiery. He's everything you want in a player. He is unbelievable. We wish we had him. And right off the bat that, like, that's a guy you better find out about.
Right.
Before you even go into school, or after you left the school, whatever, you better find out about that guy, because he could be somebody that is a difference maker.
Right. And then this maybe an off topic, not off topic, like the kid that wants to play college ball. He's visited a couple Division threes. He's visited like 2 Division twos. He plays wide receiver for us, kind of plays corner safety, and they said, we're looking at him for like a corner safety, but I know he plays a lot more wide receiver. And so our job, so me and the head coach is awesome about this. He goes, hey, if he wants to play for college and you think this is where he's going to be, we will have him practice defense. So that way he is learning it. So that way, if he does go play, he's going to have to play receiver for us. We're high school. We have no choice,
Right.
but at least
Right.
he understands defense is more to help out possibly playing for any
Hmm.
college. And he returned kickoffs. So like the first thing I tell people is you need to bring him on to be a kick returner because he has explosiveness to him. I said, I don't care if you never play him on defense, bring him on for that. So I try to tell
Right.
kids, if you want to play college ball, you need some film on special teams.
Oh yeah.
Like, you correct me if I'm wrong, if you're coaching linebackers, but he's on defense making these big plays, you're like, I can work. Like, he may not be the starting linebacker, but like, man, here in a year, his senior year, maybe that's a guy we look at, from a high
Right.
school. Like, look at these special team plays. Look at how he tackles in open space. We can
Oh,
find
yeah.
him a spot to play.
Correct. You'll see that a lot with, like, maybe some big safeties, or like a guy that's a running back, right? He's a running back, but then you see him run down a kickoff, and he's not afraid to tackle and put his face in there. He's got a couple defensive clips. Most of the stuff's offense. So, like, well, if you're running down on kickoffs, you're covering punts, you're making plays, you're making tackles in the open field, like, and that's what the game is now, right?
Yeah.
Like, the days of, like, a linebacker going and filling the A gap every play. That's not football. That's not college football anymore, right? Like,
No.
the guys that do that, when I see that in your high school film, I'm like, okay, well, is he tall enough to be a D lineman? Because if not,
Yeah.
he's out, right? Like you better be able to play in space, because if you're a guy that all you can do is be in the box, well, there's not going to be an offense we see that's going to let him be in the box.
No.
They're going to formation us. They're going to know how to get him on matchups, and now you're exposed. So, that's the game is definitely trended that way, where you better find the big, long, athletic guys and figure out where they fit.
Mm-hmm.
And you said playing on special teams is a great way to show that. And I tell all the backers, I mean, that's like the first meeting of the first everything. Like, when we get there in fall camp and spring, like, you better be in every special teams meeting. You better be in every special teams drill. You better find your way on the team on special teams, because if you're not on special teams, you're not on the bus. So don't think you're going to be a starter if you're not on the bus.
Right. And then another question, I think maybe this has always been a question. They'll ask, has he always just played that one position, or has he moved around? And like, that has also been a positive for coaches, because like you said, if let's say the high school conference does run up the A gap a lot and this guy can do this. Well, if you said, hey, do you think he is a team player and will move to defensive end? And if we told you, like, no, he fought us on this, he may not move, that's a red flag. Now,
For sure.
to work around that. But if we said, hey, look at this film, he was a linebacker, and then this next play, we put him at nose for a second. We put him here and he moved around,
Right.
Right. And so that's what I try to tell certain kids, like, hey, if you're playing running back, by asking you to go to safety and you fight us on it, okay, you're hurting the team. But then if you're a kid that could get recruited, you're hurting yourself because you're not being a team player. Now, if we're like, hey, you're a running back, we need you a defensive end for these 2 plays, and they go do it, you're just like, that kid will play anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
no question.
The guys that, like, want to play football, are the guys that make it.
Yeah.
Like guys that are like, no, I'm this, or no, I want to do that. Like they don't make it at the next level, right? Like, because when it comes down to it, is like, for us as a staff, like as a coach, like our job is to put the best 11 guys in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like now, like, okay, how does that fit? Like, what does the scheme need to be to get them on the field? What's the best way to get these 11 guys that can make plays and help the team on the field in positions that they're going to have success at, right? Like, so like, if it's a guy, it's like, no, I'm only going to do this. Well, like, you might not play.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be moody and upset because you're behind a guy that's better than you. You might be the seventh best player on the team, but you're behind number one and number two. Or how do you get on the field? So like when we tell you that we're asking you to do something else to get you on the field, like nobody's trying to move you just to move you. They're not moving you because they think it's fun or what. Like when you're being asked to play another position, it's so you can play more.
Yeah.
And it's the guys that are all about it, and the guys that are like, I mean, because there's, a lot of guys, especially at some of the smaller high schools and stuff, right? Like they play receiver, they play DB, they play linebacker, running back, they play, DN, tight end, or tight end, linebacker, or quarterback, whatever. Like, what do you want to play in college? Like, coach, I just want to play. Those guys will find home. Those guys will figure it out. They'll, you come in and, maybe you come in as a safety. Well, maybe there's a couple receivers that go down and you get a chance to go over there and play. Well, now you take a job. Like, but if you come in saying that, you only want to do this, or you want to do that, well, you end up just pigeonholing yourself and not really allowing the coaches to find ways to get you on the field and be creative. Because, when you do things like that, you're able to be productive and make plays, and you get put into, coaches put you in position to make a lot of plays.
Yeah. I joke with those kids all the time. I'm like, well, you'll be with me on the side, and I like 3 ice cubes in my water cup when you bring it to me. Like,
for sure. And a lot of the best guys, like, even like just coming from Louisiana, like some of the best DB, like not some of the best DBs we had there were guys that were like high school quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they were high school quarterbacks. They ran around. They're athletic. They came to camp so they can move. And then it's like, okay, well, like, can he play corner? Yeah, he probably can. Like he's athletic enough to do it. Yeah. And he comes and he's a really good player, and there was at least 3, 4, 5 of those guys that were doing that, like pretty regular. Like, I mean, they had a guy or two every year. And those guys were really good players for us and made a lot of plays and were very productive. And, I think that really is a big part, right? Like guys put their best athletes in certain spots and guys that make plays. Well, as long as they're willing and will show up and compete and want to play, they'll find a home,
Coach, I took a lot of your time. I have one final thing. When you were in Louisiana, did you work a lot? Did you work with Coach Nord, the offensive line?
Yeah, I did. He's at Duke now.
Yeah. I had him. I saw. Is he as fiery in person as he is when you talk to him? Because he came on the podcast. It's real funny. I saw him at the Glacier Clinic in Chicago.
Okay.
Sat in there, watched him, and the way he presented it, I'm like, the way he talked, I was like, this is my type of guy. Like he was fiery, and what he was saying, he held nothing back. Like no filter. Loved it.
He definitely is no filter. I wasn't ever in any of the line meetings, so I don't know how he was in any of the meetings or anything. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that has a limited, not much of a filter, and you don't know what you're going to get at times. He definitely keeps everybody on his toes.
Oh, because then immediately after I watched him, I went to my car. I tweeted at him, and I was like, just saw Coach Nori, great presentation. He follows me. And I said, hey, you want to come on the podcast? Hopped on. And I told him how great he did. He goes, oh, thank God. He goes, because those clinics, you just never know. What did he say to me? He goes, was I too over the top? And I was like, no. I said, that's why I sat in it the whole time. I was like,
yeah.
I felt like I was in an old line meeting room. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
He definitely, like, on staff, he's a guy that, like, early on, you don't really, like, he's not the, like, most outgoing. Like, there's not the, like, immediate. Yeah. But as you get to know him, like, it's definitely that. Like, he's definitely very, very funny and a great person to be around.
Oh, I know. I'm sad, though, because I'm happy he went to Duke, but he's like, hey, you need to come to Louisiana and get some of this food. And so he invited me. But he's not down there anymore. So I'm like, oh, shoot.
Hey, you should go anyways. The food down there, Lafayette has got to be like the food capital of the world. I mean, I ate so much. It was, I mean, me and Lionel Stokes, who was at Michigan, that was a QC, but we were down there. That was my lunch buddy. We went to eat every day. I get to Kentucky, and within 2 weeks now, and I'm not complaining about the food in Kentucky, but within 2 months, I've lost 20 pounds.
Oh,
so all I did down in Louisiana was eat. We were at all the lunch plate special places, and I mean, I mean, it's about the mix between Cajun food and soul food down there. Like, oh, it was unbelievable. I ate so much. I was always stuffed, but had a
Oh,
great time.
I need to go down there and eat that because he invited me to come watch a practice and eat the food. And I was like, I need to, just never had the time. And now he's gone. And I'm like, well, I don't know
Yeah,
anybody down there now, so I can't go down there.
yeah, food down there is awesome, man. It's a great spot. I really enjoyed my time down there.
Well, coach, I appreciate you coming on here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.